morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Today we're going to discuss two ambitious studio projects which are quickly taking shape. But first I want to let you in on two exciting opportunities here at Beyond the Trailer for you. The first is that Dolby Atmos giveaway of the Step Up All-In Blu-ray, which of course features Dolby Atmos technology. And all you have to do to win a copy is head over to Twitter and tweet me, at Grace Randolph, your one-sentence review of the film. And don't forget to include the hashtag Dolby Atmos in your tweet. I'll pick the top 3 one-sentence reviews and not only announce them here on Monday on Morning Movie News, but Dolby Atmos will send you a Blu-ray copy of Step Up All In. So don't forget to tweet me by the end of the day tomorrow, which is when the window ends for you to get your one-sentence review in. Now, the other opportunity is another episode of BTT Voice. You might have seen the second episode, which debuted earlier this week, about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and I was very happy with how it turned out, and I was so glad to see a number of you are as well. There were great responses in the video and also great responses in the comment section. But one of the most popular responses in the comment section was, "Do one for Marvel." So that's what we're going to do next, and it will be about Marvel Phase 3. So BTT Voice Episode 3 will be all about Marvel Phase 3, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, your concerns, etc. You can say anything that you want about Marvel Phase 3. Just keep it to 30 seconds. So your video cannot be longer than 30 seconds. If it goes longer than that, it just won't be watched. I mean, it's only fair to the editor here because it's just too much for him to go through. All right, so record a 30-second video of yourself sharing your thoughts about Marvel Phase 3, good or bad, good or maybe good and bad, and then upload it to YouTube as an unlisted video, not private, unlisted, and then send me the unlisted link to my email address, grace@gracerandolph.com. And you have 1 week to do this. I'm giving you the weekend. It's always good to have a weekend because I'm sure it's easier to film then. So you have this weekend and then all through next week. So by the end of the day, on Friday, November 21st, you have to have your videos in. I'll send out reminders, so start thinking now about what you'd like to say about Marvel Phase 3 for the next episode of BTT Voice. All right, so let's move on to those two ambitious studio projects. The first is, of course, a comic book movie. One's comic book, one's not, so we have some diversity today. I'm trying to mix it up here on Morning Movie News so everybody can enjoy the episodes. So the comic book project is from Warner Brothers, and it's their Suicide Squad movie. And this is, of course, a very ambitious project. They're putting as much care into this, or some would argue not care, at least energy and importance, as they are their Justice League movie. And they're really trying to assemble an interesting team of villains or anti-heroes, depending on the direction they decide to go in with the project. Although knowing David Ayer, they might be outright villains who have an occasional heroic moment. So the cast, we've been following this very closely, and there was actually an announcement yesterday about a new person in the mix, which I thought was so ridiculous I didn't even cover it. But some people asked me about it, so I thought I'd cover it today. But let's go through the cast as it is coming together. All right, we have Jared Leto as the Joker. Like it, check. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Don't personally like it, but I understand it. We'll discuss further when she's officially cast, so check. Tom Hardy as Rick Flag. Who the heck is Rick Flag? He's apparently a founding member of Suicide Squad, with a whole generation of Rick Flags joining the team, but nobody knows who he is, and it seems like a waste of Tom Hardy to me. Although Tom Hardy's probably like, a chance to do whatever I want with the character and to define it myself. And I'd be like, I think you'd be better off getting, landing a character that people are excited about. But anyway, Tom Hardy, Rick Flag, apparently. Then Will Smith, they're like, well, we don't know who he's going to play, but we're guessing Captain Boomerang. I'd be very surprised if Will Smith is going to play Captain Boomerang. That seems like a ridiculous role for him, and I think Will Smith's just a little bit too cool and a little bit too successful to get stuck with that role. I would think Tom Hardy would maybe be Captain Boomerang, because he could at least do something interesting with it, and there's the Australian background, and Tom Hardy's UK, but still he can play with that, have a fun accent, etc. All the things that Tom Hardy loves. I would think Will Smith would be Black Spider, and then maybe Black Spider's like a good guy, actually, who's infiltrating the team, kind of like Batman in Assault on Arkham. So that sounds like a role Will Smith would take to me. But anyway, officially, he's circling the Captain Boomerang role, which seems ridiculous. But, so many times with these rumors, like the Aunt May one we discussed earlier this week, you feel like the way people are sorting them out makes no sense. And it just, that's how I think these weird rumors get started. Somebody makes the wrong connections, and then it just starts rolling down a hill and gaining momentum. The hill of gossip. All right, and then of course Jesse Eisenberg is Lex Luthor. That's our other person. So, check. I'm excited about Jesse Eisenberg in that role. So we have Jared Leto, Joker, Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn, Tom Hardy, Rick Flag, Will Smith, Captain Boomerang, Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor, and then now apparently Jai Courtney, Deadshot. I feel like this is a children's game. Which of these does not belong? I'll give you the answer. Jai Courtney. Every other actor here has some level of credibility and respect from the industry and audiences. Even Margot Robbie, because a lot of fans, really, particularly fanboys, liked her in The Wolf of Wall Street. And that was a very highly respected movie, also from the fanboy base, which I'm sure Warner Brothers wants to appeal to with Suicide Squad. So she has some real cachet coming out of that movie, and opposite Leonardo DiCaprio, of course, who we all love, even if the Academy doesn't. But Jai Courtney, this is the guy who was in A Good Day to Die Hard, which, by the way, made a decent chunk of money worldwide, thanks to, the foreign audience. But it still was a horrible movie, and I think it really kind of hurt them ever making another Die Hard again. I sat through that. It was horrible. So he did that. Jai Courtney did that. He's associated with that. He's apparently in the Divergent series. I totally forgot about him until I was looking at his resume, and I was like, oh yeah, I think you were there for like a few minutes. So he's in that. I hope he doesn't mess it up. And then he's in the new Terminator movie, Terminator Genesis, as the new Kyle Reese, which I'm sure is going to be horrible. We're all super, not even worried about it. We just kind of know, a little bit like what's going on with Fox's Fantastic Four. We're like, I know that's going to be crap. The question is, crap that I sit through? I think with both, odds are, of course, yes, because how can we not see what they do with these properties? And that's, of course, what the studios are banking on. But I think that he's a real mistake to add to this. I don't understand why Tom Hardy isn't Deadshot. I'd be like, a Tom Hardy, Margot Robbie romance? I think people would be into that. And I think that Jai Courtney just brings down the whole cast and makes it seem like the B-level picture it's in danger of becoming anyway. So if I was Warner Brothers and the casting director came to me with that idea, I'd be like, get out of my office. That's ridiculous. Tear up Jai Courtney's headshot. I never want to hear his name in here again, unless some other studio manages to turn him into a movie star. It's not going to be me. But he's in the mix apparently, and I don't understand why we would have Rick Flag and Deadshot. It seems awfully repetitive to me, unless one of them dies like in the first 15 minutes of the movie. I think it should be Deadshot, just because he's played by Jai Courtney. But Deadshot's a really important character who's gaining a lot of fans through his association with Harley Quinn and the current Suicide comic and, of course, animated movie Assault on Arkham. So we'll see what happens, but I'm curious to how you think this team is coming together and if you agree that Jai Courtney is that big of a misstep. All right, so what's the second project coming together? Well, this is over at Universal, and this is their Monsters Cinematic Universe. But wow! I was kind of excited about this before because I do enjoy their monster movies. If you go back and watch the original 1930s ones, particularly The Invisible Man, you'll be very impressed with not only the quality of the films, but the special effects for 1930s no less. That's really impressive. So I was kind of into this, but now that I see the team that they're building creatively for this universe, I'm actually super excited about it, rivaling my excitement for like Marvel movies and DC movies, probably even surpassing it. And I would think every studio, well not Marvel, but surpassing DC, and I would think every studio should pay attention to what's going on here and keep an eye on it to see if it works out, because this seems like the way things should be done. So what is Universal doing? Well, they're assembling a team of writers to create their monster men, they're going to call them, and they're going to be like a TV writer's room, and they're all going to coordinate the different films. How novel an idea is that? Hey, do all our movies fit together? Well, maybe we should write them that way and actually, exchange notes and exchange ideas. What a crazy thing to do. So that's, I think, a fantastic idea, and I like the idea that they're trying to model it after television because, of course, television has fantastic writing. And television, I think one of the reasons it's so successful right now is that it differs from movies and that in TV, writers are king. Writers control the project, and they're often the showrunner of the entire series. So, like Vince Gilligan over at Breaking Bad, a writer. Writers again, as I said, are king, and that's served TV quite well. And it looks like Universal is like, well, these are old properties, and I think that we really have to make sure that they're well crafted to maybe compete with the more flashier, newer properties that have like superpowers and more special effects. And that also makes me wonder, will these be period pieces? I would love to see them be period pieces if Universal could kind of assemble their own League of Extraordinary Gentlemen but cheap by not paying Alan Moore for the idea. That would be a good idea. I would be like, sorry, Alan Moore, you should have, Alan Moore has the worst luck with movie adaptations and rights to his projects. But they should still be out there. So I really liked, by the way, the Benicio del Toro Wolfman. I thought it was a good movie. I really liked it. Joe Johnston directed it. He went on to do Captain America, of course, the first Avenger. He did Jurassic Park 3. I think he's a pretty solid director. I always enjoy his films. Captain America actually the least out of those three. But he did, of course, October Sky way back in the day. And I thought The Wolfman was a lot of fun. And I still remember to this day that a lot of Puerto Rican viewers turned up for that because they were so excited that Benicio del Toro was in the title role. Because, I was doing audience reviews then. And that was the big takeaway. And I was really surprised and excited about that. And so hopefully Universal will try to work some diversity into this this cinematic universe they're building. And even though The Wolfman was a period piece, they found a really good way to make it organic that Benicio del Toro's character was the Wolfman. Don't want to ruin it for you. Go watch the movie. I think it's pretty good. And it was another film, I think, that was ruined by the director not getting the cut they wanted. The studio wanted a shorter movie and hacked it up. But anyway, not bad. And if they can kind of go in that direction, I'll be very happy. Or they might go in the Dracula Untold direction where they're trying to get a modern-day underworld kind of story. So I'm curious to what you think. But I'm teasing you. This is a long tease for this list of writers, right? Well, let's get to it. So the head of these writers, of course, is Alex Kurtzman, and he's ironically the weakest of the bunch. He wrote Transformers, those films. They do have a writer, the Star Trek movies, all with Roberto Orci, so maybe he can say, oh, it was Roberto Orci, he's the one who sucks. They wrote the Star Trek films, the reboots, or the alternate universe, and then also Spider-Man 2. Not Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2. So he's in charge of all this, but I'm glad he's getting other people and he recognizes good talent when he sees it, even when it's not when he looks in the mirror. All right, so Chris Morgan, although the first Star Trek was good, so let's not be too hard on him. All right, so Chris Morgan is the first person he brought on here, and he wrote the Fast and Furious movies, which I know some of you might say, how's that any different than Alex Kurtzman? But I enjoyed the Fast and Furious movies. So Chris Morgan, he's coming on as well. But then listen to the other writers. Then there's Ed Solomon, who wrote the Men in Black movies, but also Now You See Me, very popular Jesse Eisenberg, Mark Ruffalo, Woody Harrelson, Dave Franco, Isla Fisher, Michael Caine, etc., magic film that did really, really well. He's on board. Then Aaron Guzikowski, he wrote Prisoners. That's the Jake Gyllenhaal, Hugh Jackman film that was seriously underappreciated. Fantastic movie. If you haven't seen Prisoners, go watch it this weekend. And then also Noah Hawley. And Noah Hawley is the creator of FX's Fargo. That's the TV series based on the Coen brothers film. And that is a very good television series. Again, if you haven't seen it, there's your weekend activity. Go find FX's Fargo. It has Billy Bob Thornton and Martin Freeman in it, and they're both just so good. It's a fantastic show. I loved it. Also, a wonderful turn from Colin Hanks, Tom Hanks' son. Very, very, very good. And there's also a very good show. And there's also an actress who plays the sheriff, or deputy sheriff, and I don't remember her name, unfortunately, but she's so good in the role. I mostly just think of her as this character, but she's also very good. Kind of a new discovery, trying to see what other work she can get in Hollywood, but she's very, very good. All right, so I think that's a great team of writers. I think that this is a great idea of how to construct their cinematic universe, and I think it's all very exciting. And the properties they're planning to bring to the big screen are The Mummy, that'll be first, The Wolfman, Dracula. Wolfman's also moving forward very quickly. Dracula. I don't think Dracula Untold is going to be the start of the cinematic universe, by the way. It's losing blood fast. Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and of course Van Helsing. So I think this sounds great. I think it sounds very exciting, and I think Universal is doing a great job. And if they can build another great cinematic universe as they begin to bring their Fast and Furious franchise to a close, as we discussed yesterday, it could be really profitable for them and exciting for us. All right, so that's the third story of the day. Let's move on to the viewer question. This comes from EmoKid64. And EmoKid64 says, question, Grace. In the last 3 Disney movies, Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, and Big Hero 6, the main villains all have a big reveal as part of their plot. Do you feel that this is the reason the villains in Disney movies have not been so memorable in recent years? And why do you feel Disney is taking this route for their antagonist story? Back in the older Disney movies, the villains were very memorable in there, since I feel enough screen time and presence were given to them as well to flesh them out. Great point! When you think of the classic Disney villains, you'd be hard-pressed to think of any from today's current Disney renaissance, which is on the verge, I think, of becoming official. Big Hero 6 is successful, I think we can call it. Right now, it's really like a one-off with Frozen, basically. Although I did love Wreck-It Ralph quite a bit, and I enjoyed Tangled, but we'll see. I think Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog is the last person to be added to the Disney villains roster. And I think he's, I'm always glad to see him incorporated. I think he's a great villain, by the way. Keith David did a very good job both voicing him and singing for him, and he was genuinely malicious. He was an evil dude. And as I've said many times before, I think The Princess and the Frog is a very good movie, holds up quite well. You should watch it again if you haven't recently, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. But Dr. Facilier, I think, is the last great Disney villain to come out of Disney animation. Why is that? Well, let's hope that it's just growing pains. I have not been happy with a lot of Disney projects lately, as you might recall from my reviews, but I'm happy with where they're going. I'm happy with what they're trying to do, even though I think they're failing miserably in the transformation process. But when they get there, maybe it'll be all worth it. And of course it's worth it from a business perspective because Frozen's just so incredibly successful. So I think what they're trying to do is have more sophisticated heroes. And that takes up all the screen time you're talking about Emo Kid 64, which usually will be divided up between hero and villain. It used to be when you have a really clear-cut hero, you need your villain to chew the scenery and make things exciting, and that's very much the purpose villains serve. I mean, think about one of the most popular villains of all time in Disney animation, Maleficent. That's because Sleeping Beauty is hardly in her own movie, so there's lots of time for Maleficent, not only because there's a lot of free time in the film, but it's a necessity of the way the story is constructed. If we can't focus on Sleeping Beauty because she's asleep, what are we going to focus on? Let's focus on the villain. Ursula, also, of course, great villain. These were wonderful characters, but Ariel, pretty clear-cut. Her mission is established really early on, her character arc, her hero's journey. Same thing with Star Wars. We take those things into account. The old Disney films were following the old formula. Clear-cut hero, clear-cut villain, and it gives time to for everybody to strut their stuff in their roles. But Disney animation is trying to be more sophisticated. They have heroes that seem like villains. And Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph was supposed to be the villain in the piece, so a lot of time was spent with how he felt about that and trying to show him become the hero. Then the same thing with Elsa and Frozen. And she was even supposed to be the villain. I think she would have made for quite a memorable villain if they had gone that route and, maybe be redeemed at the last minute, in the third act of the film. But they didn't go that route because of the Let It Go song, and they made her, a very sympathetic hero, always a good girl. And I think that was a good idea because it turned out so well. But as a result, I don't want to, well, everyone's seen Frozen at this point. So they rush in Hans at the last minute there. And again, it's all about the twist. I think Hans could have been a bigger deal. I think it could have been really great to have this handsome Disney villain if Hans had more to do. I think a big part of Hans wasn't that it was the reveal, but that Hans was so unthreatening. Like, Hans was like the worst villain ever. And thank goodness, because as you might recall, I had a lot of problems with what kind of heroes Elsa and Anna were. I thought they were also a little incompetent. But as you might recall, it took him forever to do anything. He was like, I'm going to lock you in this room to die, instead of just waiting to make sure everything pans out. And then, of course, he really paused forever to plunge that sword into Elsa, right? So I think he was so ineffective. It's a little bit of the same problem that Marvel is having. And Marvel also has very sophisticated heroes. So you're seeing similar problems with the two different divisions of Disney, which is interesting when you think about it. So I think it's, as heroes get more complex and they are more gray than black and white, I think that they're soaking up time that's dedicated usually to the villains. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if, it's a pendulum effect perhaps. Maybe it'll go back the other way. But I think that's what's going on. And I think that, hopefully Disney will get to a point where their scripts are so sophisticated and good enough that they can develop both the heroes and villains will be in a good place. Yes, I do think the reveal is getting old. I think it worked very effectively in Wreck-It Ralph. They genuinely surprised me. I was like, what the what? I didn't see that coming. That's awesome. So I like that a lot, and so much of that movie, of course, is the relationship between Penelope Van Schweetz and Wreck-It Ralph, and how sometimes they're the villains for each other. So that was very good. But and that was a very sophisticated, well written out script, I felt. Frozen, again, the flaws I just discussed, and I think Big Hero 6, very, very, very weak villain. And I think, again, that might be from having too many heroes. Hero included there. And I think, again, it's a matter of not enough screen time. I think if you're going to have a complex hero, you need a longer movie, and that's something we're seeing happen in the live action space, with movie times getting longer, 2 hours plus, and I think that maybe animation, if they want to try and go this route, might have to consider going in that direction. Or maybe not, because they're sure making a lot of money. All right, write your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Write what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered on Monday, and any questions that you might have. And don't forget to tweet me that 1-sentence review for Step Up All In by the end of day tomorrow, and your BTT Voice videos about Marvel Phase 3 by the end of the day on Friday, 1 week from today, November 21st. Thanks so much. Bye.